in a big city with multiple high schools within that program, I don't see that transition.
I think if the high school runs a contrarian offense
Yep.
that is like a ground-based running style offense, I think that can work. If that feeder program only feeds that school and that program has a lot of stability, like that coach has been there for a while, he's going to stay there for a while, they win a lot. But even if the coach doesn't change, the high school system can change. So I think there's more carryover of fundamentals than scheme per se. And I
Yeah.
think that's, as a high school coach, that's what you're hoping you get, as guys who are good fundamental football players who understand football, who can learn scheme, which really is the easiest thing to teach.
If in your town or county or district, there's only one high school, and then those coaches have been there tenured for a while and they're not really moving and they're kind of winning and successful, they're running kind of a traditional power or a simplified spread where they've actually simplified it down for their middle school and youth programs. If they're involved, if those coaches are heavily involved with training the middle school guys and the youth guys, and then that youth team is not in a general youth league, but they are a
Mhm.
select travel team that is high caliber athletes where there's no minimum play players. Kids get cut every year, just like at the high school level. If that kind of youth program is being run and those coaches are top coaches and understand the whole systems, I think that can probably work.
I
But
agree 100%.
but it's got to be lined up in a very linear, you know. And I think what
Mhm.
happens, because a lot of the guys that say it works, is they're in a small town where this is occurring. Like I think Bixby, Oklahoma does this, and it's,
Right.
you know, they're locked in. For the majority of us, there's always this 80-20 rule, right? I think the 80% of us that coach youth football are coaching in recreational kind of leagues where,
Right. Yeah.
but it's not tier one athletes. 10% of these aligned high school teams probably work out, right? Would you say that, or 5%?
The parameters that have to be in place is so true. You see it at a high level, small town or private schools. If you don't have those things going, it doesn't, like, running the same system's not going to make that big of a difference, in my opinion. I think the data that we're going to talk about backs that up too. You got to give coaches the autonomy to run their stuff, run what they know, and then coach the fundamentals and try to make their team the best it can be. Good to see you, my friend.
Oh, great to see you, Coach Zach. How are you? And all the other
Uh,
coaches out there, hello, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. I think
Great
this
topic.
topic is something that I have talked about with coaches on my staff before, and now we're gonna talk about it together on the podcast. This is gonna be really good.
Yeah, this comes up a ton in my forums and over my 30 plus seasons tackling and writing. It keeps coming up. And a guy posted this question about youth players moving to high school, and if those youth coaches should coach the high school systems to help out those players, and if there's a correlation there. And it gets asked a ton, and the answers are all over the place. So I said, hey, I think this is a good topic, and you were like, yeah, you jumped on it. So yeah, so let's get into it. Do you want to go first, or how do you want to do this one?
Oh man,
Because it goes back and forth
first
here.
thing I want to talk about is how awesome Chat GPT is at producing data. Because
Yes.
what you sent me with the notes for you sent me the notes for this podcast, and oh my gosh, that is in-depth research about our topic today.
Yeah, it's crazy. And if you coaches or business people, whoever's listening is not using one of the AI tools, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, or Claude, I use those heavily in a lot of things that I do. You should be using those, because I'd read an article about 2 weeks ago about youth athletes and correlation to Olympic athletes. And if there's any correlation, I forgot what that article was, but I typed that into ChatGPT and it pulled up a lot more and a lot more detailed information on that particular topic. Yeah.
I have not heard of Claude. I've heard of Grok. What is Claude?
So Claude is a new one, and I logged in last week. Yeah, and it's a lot meaner and more straightforward.
Oh,
Uh
jeez.
AI, it doesn't pat you on the back and say, "Ooh, that's a good question. Yes, 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 yes." This one was definitely more like me, direct, and said, "Yeah, like ChatGPT and Gemini were saying, yeah, this poem is great because I write some poetry and I'm a writer, so I write stuff."
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were like, yeah, yeah, this is great. I gave it to Claude, and he goes, no, this is not publishable. This is what you need to do. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that one hurt. So he was right. I mean, and I like that. So I play all four of those off of each other, which
Mm.
is kind of cool. So you'll ask one a question, you'll get a question, and then I'll go to so I'll start like at ChatGPT, I'll ask a question, then I'll go to Gemini, kind of ask the same question with the answer. I'll do that at Grok every now and then. I've done this with Claude, and you play them off of each other to get where you need to go. I do that with cooking too. I'll take like 3 or 4 recipes and
Huh.
mix it up, but that's how I've found that you can get correct information from the AIs.
That is super interesting. I don't know enough about AI, and I need to know more, and you're gonna be my guy on that too, coach. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
lean into your expertise.
It is so cool. You could have some very interesting conversations with those guys, but they're not great at football yet. But for encyclopedia kind of stuff you're looking for, research like we did here, they're
Mhm,
awesome. They're like a high end calculator, Encyclopedia Britannica kind of thing.
hmm. I think it's
So it,
the notes that you shared are great. I kinda wanna start with the anecdotal evidence that you shared first. So what's your experience, like, personally, or things you've heard people say about the transition from youth to high school? Do you run the same scheme, et cetera, et cetera?
so like my son hates me when it's all about me, but I'll start with all about me as a player.
I love it.
So I was a high end youth player on a select travel team in Houston. We actually played a big city championship at Rice Stadium one year, so we were the real deal. Our quarterback became a blue chipper in Texas high school football, which is a big deal here in the state.
Mhm,
And then I went on. So as a youth player through seventh and eighth grade, I was on the offensive line, defensive line. I was a center, guard, or a tackle, depending on what they needed that year. But when I hit puberty and got to high school, actually eighth grade, I became a skill player. So for me, if I was running, the high school system and a youth player, I was learning the O line. I totally changed positions and did totally different things as a player. And then we ran I guess an offset eye in youth, and we ran a power eye in high school option. Those were two different things, but I
mhm,
never saw the correlation there for me as a player. It didn't really kind of equate that way. What we have here as a youth program, we feed just in our district alone 4 high schools.
mm,
So our players can go to 4 high schools, but there's surrounding districts that come into our program, which are like another 6. So
mhm,
there's 10 high school that all these players could go to. So what system do we use? And to me, a lot of the high schools around here, other than South Lake, are losing programs and their coaches switch a lot. They get fired for not winning. That's what happens in Texas because they're getting paid a lot of money. So
mhm.
if you were a youth player and you ran, say, XYZ high school's program, by the time you got there, that coach probably isn't there. So it's like a totally different system. So I don't see those things in a big city with multiple high schools within that program working out. I don't see that transition. And I do see a lot of youth players. I think because our middle school coaches are mostly history teachers and they don't have a lot of football experience, which is kind of crazy. So some of the youth coaches are more experienced than these. I think people wind up quitting in middle school because they're not used to losing like they were winning at youth program.
Mhm.
And then also there's injuries. I think you've been around. I mean, a lot of good players drop because of injury. There's so many, and then a lot of players drop for grades. So I think those things go in. So I'm not seeing the direct correlation for me. How
Mhm.
about you?
Like we talked about a little bit before the podcast, I think if the high school runs a contrarian offense
Yep.
that is like a ground-based running style offense, single wing, stick eye, something of that nature, or double wing, veer, I think that can work, if that feeder program only feeds that school. Like, they
Yes.
don't feed, like you were saying, other programs, and that program has a lot of stability, like, that coach has been there for a while, he's gonna stay there for a while, they win a lot. But I even know for me as a high school head coach, we only ran the same offensive system in consecutive years once.
Oh,
Like
really?
like, we
That's
were, like, spread RPO for 2 years, and then I went to a different program, and we had different players, so it wasn't like, "Oh, okay, this is my system, we're just gonna run this." No, you adapt to your personnel, and I think going forward, I will change that, we'll run the same system over and over again, but even if the coach doesn't change, the high school system can change. So, I think there's more carryover of fundamentals than scheme per se, and I
yeah.
think that's as a high school coach, that's what you're hoping you get as guys who are good fundamental football players who understand football, who can learn scheme, which really is the easiest thing to teach.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I wrote down some things that I got from some of these answers to the questions, and it kind of goes kind of what you just said. So, kind of my factors of it definitely kind of working, and then we can go in more detail later. But
Mhm,
like you said, I think if in your town or county or district, there's only one high school, and then those coaches have been there tenured for a while and they're not really moving and they're kind of winning and successful. They're running kind of a traditional power or a simplified spread where they've actually simplified it down for their middle school and youth programs. If they're involved, if those coaches are heavily involved with training the middle school guys and the youth guys, and then that youth team is not in a general youth league, but they are
mhm.
a select travel team that is high caliber athletes where there's no minimum play players. Kids get cut every year, just like it. I mean, just like at the high school level. If that kind of youth program is being run and those coaches are top coaches and understand the whole systems, uh, and you've only got those top players. I mean, you can't have a bunch of weak players, I think. You've got those top tier ones. And if the high school has really invested in that team and basically given them almost an exact playbook, but toned down for youth,
Mhm.
uh, I think that can probably work.
I
But
agree 100%.
it's gotta be lined up in a very linear, and I think what
Mhm.
happens because a lot of the guys that say it works is they're in a small town where this is occurring, like, I think Bixby, Oklahoma does this, and it's
Right.
you know, they're locked in,
Mhm.
and, I think for the majority of us, there's always this 80-20 rule, right? I think the 80% of us that coach youth football are coaching in recreational kind of leagues where
Right, yeah.
we're not selecting, boy, our players, we're getting a pool. We may select out of this, league pool, but it's not tier one athletes. Those have been
Mhm.
pinched off. Like our guys get pinched off all the time to go to select, and I don't blame some of them going because they are probably select, but yeah, so I think, that's kinda where, you know okay, so 10% of these aligned high school teams probably work out, right? Would you say that or 5%?
I do, and what you talked about, the parameters that have to be in place is so true. You see it at a high level, small town or private schools.
Private
Where I
schools,
saw it
yeah.
work was in Bridgeport, West Virginia, and that town has a very high socioeconomic status for West Virginia. blue collar mentality. Football is really important there. Those kids don't transfer in and out. The
Right.
coaching staff stays very consistent. But if you don't have those things going, it doesn't like running the same system's not going to make that big of a difference, in my opinion.
Right.
And I think the data that we're going to talk about backs that up too. And
Right.
yeah, like for the rest of us, like where I've coached youth league this year, it's a upper Queen Anne's County, but those kids will go to different high schools. They won't all go to Queen Anne's County High School. So there's not like one system you want to run because they may go to Kent County or Queen Anne's or Kent Island or a private school
Or
on the
move.
Western Shore of Maryland. Yeah, or move, right?
Or
So
move.
you got to give coaches the autonomy to run their stuff, run what they know, and then coach the fundamentals and try to make their team the best it can be.
Yeah, so like how it doesn't work out is like we've said, there's multiple high schools. I mean, you're like, well, what system do I want to run?
Right.
Um, I know for a while there was no high school support from the high schools in our district. The middle school coaches even hated our youth league, but
Why
they
was
would,
that? Why would they hate the youth league?
I don't know. We were all winning and we
Right.
would give over our
Right.
players and they would lose because it was really
Mm,
funny. What we would see at the middle school is, look, they're getting like my youngest son and oldest son in seventh grade, there were 130 kids that went out for football.
whew,
Yeah.
man.
So they had ABC team.
Mm,
And so there wasn't a lot of coaches. And so they would just look at size and kind of go ABC and not like how long have you played and where you would start, or they didn't ask these questions like I do, like how many touchdowns have you scored? So the first
mhm,
couple of games, they're still trying to figure out between A and B teams who are the real football players, and then they'd kind of figure it out. But even still, it's like they would play bigger kids, even though they weren't as good as some of the B team guys, because they were thinking they're going to be better in high school, which is
okay.
my two sons grew their sophomore year in high school, not in seventh and eighth grade. So it's like
Mm,
you
mhm,
can't, I don't know, it just didn't work out that way. Um, and then I think the other thing, like I said, is I think kids quit in middle school because I know my kids and a lot of other kids were very upset that the middle school program was not as good as the youth program, even though the middle school coaches didn't think we were teaching anything, which
mhm,
was totally wild.
mhm.
I don't know understand why he thought that, but so like I
And
said,
yeah,
you've got to kind of be aligned. I mean, all those coaches have
mhm,
to like embrace the programs instead of not trying to help. Okay, so you hate the program, great, but what can you do? It's like when I got to KYA, I thought the coaching needed to be upgraded because my friend and I were just killing everybody for a long, and so I was like, we need training for these other coaches on how to do things. And so, okay, let's do it. Because he was a VP of the football program. And like I put the training together and we did it. And it was like, it wasn't to my benefit to do that, but it was a benefit to the league. And like, I don't understand why those coaches at the middle school and high school level didn't see that it would sort of be some kind of benefit if they embraced it. And so I think, that's one of the issues is if those guys are not aligned, that's a problem.
yeah, I definitely think the high school coach needs to make appearances at youth and middle school events if there is a middle school. Like in Maryland, we don't have middle school football. So the high school coach would need to make some appearances at youth, games, practices, whatnot, because like you said, it's that alignment piece. You're trying to get alignment from the top down, maybe not the same scheme, but at least we're all in the same team rowing the boat in the same direction.
Right.
And we're trying to make every team in our league better so we can be successful at all levels every year.
Yeah, I think the way that a lot for a youth coach, if you're having if you're wanting to align with a high school coach and he's not exactly I guess wanting to align, one way to kind of do that is to try to get him is try to understand what his terminology is
Mhm.
and maybe some fundamentals that you want to teach. So you can kind of grab like what is his word for emotion, like jet. What is he calling jet? What does he call orbit? What does he call his back numbering scheme? These are little bitty things that aren't a big deal to change as a youth coach. And I can call it whatever you want to call it and
Mhm.
still run a T or a beast or whatever. My backs can be called his numbering or whatever that is. Or if he's got a blocking scheme, we can try to maybe install that with our other stuff. So I think there's some things you can align, even though maybe there's not this total alignment, but you can kind of find some ways maybe to do that if that's what you're trying to do. I would have actually kind of taken some of that if they would have pushed it and said,
Mhm.
"Hey, can you guys teach these 5 things?" Right? I
Mhm.
mean, I don't need to
Mhm.
run your system, but here's 5 things we would love you to teach. We'd love to teach this three-point stance. Even though you don't
Mhm.
use it, can you teach it?
Right. Yeah, that's good.
You know, can you teach the snap count? You know,
Yeah, I had not thought of that. That's really interesting.
yeah, can you teach what we call our offensive line, and numbering system? So there's some
Mhm.
things there that you can do if that aligns. But yeah, so
Mm.
that's the alignment stuff that I think that you could try to grab if somebody's wants to do it.
Mhm.
Uh, but my experience has been when the high school coaches come into youth, they're trying to run their systems and we blast them. They have not been very successful coming into our youth league.
Yeah, I think you have to have some humility too, and
Yeah.
understanding that's a different game. Like the notes from ChatGPT said, it's so true. So
Oh
the
yeah. It
coverages you see in high school with fronts,
wasn't
you're
that a
not
good
seeing those youth
summary?
games.
That was such a
That was
great
beautiful.
summary. Yeah, we'll have to
Yeah, it was
talk
very
about
good.
that. We'll have to talk about that. So I think we beat the horse in on how the high school and coaches have to be aligned for it to all work out. So where do you want to go from here? I guess we've got a lot of comments from users, and then we can go right into that player. I thought that was interesting.
Mhm.
Going from youth to senior elite athletes, and that transition wasn't a one-to-one transition. Didn't you think that was interesting?
I thought it was very interesting, and it's something that I've seen with my own eyes and experienced it myself. Like my dad was a major league baseball player, like
Oh, he
pitched in
was.
the World Series,
Oh my
the
god.
whole
Oh,
9.
well, Zach, I didn't know I was sitting with royalty here.
Oh, stop. And I was a really good youth baseball player, like all-star, all kinds of stuff. Then
Very
puberty
interesting.
was not kind to me, and I was I became not a very good baseball player, and I didn't even play middle school or high school baseball. I played football.
That must have
So,
killed your dad.
well, you know what? He was my O-line coach. He
Okay.
loves football. He was a football guy, and, so I saw that correlation with myself and then my friends too that were really good in like youth league football or middle school football. They were really good high school players, but a lot of times that wasn't the case. Like they had maxed out at youth league, middle school, and people caught up to them, and they weren't the hardest workers because their natural talent carried them
Right.
in the youth league, middle school. Um, and then in high school they had to work, and if you haven't developed that work ethic, that's hard to pick up at the high school level and just become a hard worker at that point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that hard worker aspect because I was always like a really good player in football because of my size, and then I stopped growing my freshman year. I kind of stunted because of ill pneumonia, and then
Mm.
I didn't have that work ethic. I'd always
Oh
relied
wow.
on my size and natural
Mhm.
strength, and people caught up to me. So if there's one thing, the advice that I always give to the youth players, is one, don't let yourself go like I've done, and two,
That's
uh,
funny. Oh my gosh.
work out and work out hard like you're not a stud. You've got to work out
Mhm,
even harder because
mhm,
people do catch up. They will catch up
mhm.
to you. So those are two pieces of advice there. It's funny that your dad was a baseball player. He's a professional, but my dad was a minor league kind of off minor league player here in DFW. And
Yeah, yeah.
he hated it that I did not play baseball. I played 2 seasons. I didn't enjoy it, and
Mhm.
but he enjoyed that I played football. But yeah, I was not a big baseball player. But Cesar Cedeno in Houston was my Astro buddy, which loved that.
Okay.
My roommate's close friend was the bat boy for the Astros, so we got to go to a lot of games.
Oh, nice. In the old Astrodome.
And the old Astrodome, we sat with the Ys
Oh,
behind the
man.
plate.
That's
That was
awesome, man.
that was kind of cool.
Uh,
So yeah, this study I thought was really, really interesting that it's saying basically that there just really isn't this direct line correlation between an elite youth player being an elite Olympian or even a track star or
mhm,
even an athlete. And there were a lot of factors that kind of came in with it being grades,
mhm,
kind of shot that out of the deal. Just the amount of work being an athlete and going to school at the same time at a high level didn't really work out. I mean, even the grades were there, but just their mental part of it, they weren't able to handle all of that together. Then you had injuries that kind of affected them. And then what I thought was interesting is that the coach athlete relationship was hindered. And I
mhm,
know I kind of had that in high school a little bit with the head coach that I wasn't a big fan of. And so I think those
mhm,
things a lot play a part of why those youth athletes don't make it to that high level high school athlete.
mhm.
What
Yeah,
do you think there?
I see all of that. You see it. My experience as a high school football coach is you see the young men who, if they played like here in Maryland, if they played youth league, there's no grade requirement. And they get to high school and they have to have a 2.0 every
Yeah,
uh, grading period, every about 4.5 weeks. And that's new to them. You mean I have to have a 2.0 to play? Yes, you
yeah,
do. And I think it's a disservice that the youth programs don't have some kind of GPA requirement. I don't know how that would work, but that is something that's a big hurdle for some of them because it wasn't a requirement until they got to ninth grade. Now, if they have middle school football like they did in West Virginia, they were
that helps.
used. That helped a lot.
Yeah, that helps
Um,
a lot. Yeah, one of the things that we've done, because some parents have asked at the youth level, because they've had older brothers at middle school and the grade thing comes out, is we've pushed this C level or better as a player. We want, and if you make an A or 100 or over, a 90 on the test or whatever, or an assignment, bring it to practice and we'll give you a helmet sticker for good grades. And so
ooh, I like that.
so that's one thing that we've tried to do as youth coaches is really push this grade piece. And then if we get a parent say, little Johnny failed his 2 tests, can you help us with some discipline? We will do
Mhm,
that. And they'll do some run to the tree kind of things. And that really helps them kind of prepare this middle school, high school journey. Cause I do think the grades get a lot of great athletes.
mhm.
I've seen a lot of running backs
Yeah.
not play games because they couldn't play that semester. And that sucks for the team.
Mhm, mhm.
It really
Yeah, it
does.
does. And, the grade piece and then just the physical development piece. I was thinking about the Little League World Series when we were talking about this topic for the podcast, and I thought, that's a perfect example because if the Little League World Series was an indicator of kids that were gonna make it to the major
Oh,
leagues,
you're right on the money here, aren't you?
that would be like, "Oh, great, we know who's gonna be the major league players," but that is not even close. I mean, most of those kids don't play in the major leagues. The vast majority don't. And
Right.
that to me is the biggest, oh my, that's a light bulb. Oh, I get it. So people develop at different
Yeah, I think
ages.
that Chipper Jones kid did though, right? He made it.
Did
Was it
Chipper? I don't know if Chipper did or not. I don't know that stat off the top of my head.
Yeah. But it's funny you say that because one of the users in the group said that puberty and the weight room kind of hindered that progression to the better players.
Mhm.
So,
And
yeah,
then like in baseball, the field size changes, and in football, the football size changes, and then the kind of player you're playing against changes because people are all growing up, and there's just so many factors that you can't control, and you don't know who's going to become the best as they get older.
that I'm so glad you said that football change. You've got K2, then you've got the junior, and then you've got youth. That change just from fourth to sixth grade ball change is a huge in passing capability. We've
Mhm.
had so many quarterbacks that couldn't make the first season ball change. They could deal with it on the second year with it, but that ball gets even bigger at high school to college and then NFL. And that, yeah, if your hand size is not making that transition as a skill player, that really, I hadn't really put that together today, but yeah, you've hit the nail on that one because it really
N-
is a big deal. I mean, when
It
I take
really
an NFL
is.
ball myself, I'm like, there's no
You're
way.
like, what the? Like
Yeah,
this
I
thing's
couldn't play
huge.
with this. And then you look at those quarterback fingers and those some of those guys, it's crazy how big their hands are. So yeah, so
Mhm.
that's a big deal. But I will just so everybody, I'll try to post this chat GBT and the studies, the citations,
Yeah,
so
it's
everybody
awesome.
can go back
Yeah.
and take a
Mhm.
look at that study. What else did they find here? Yeah, just just the life sport balance. Uh we were talking about the coaches, but it also talks about, and I think this is a big deal, your friends and family support system on
Oh
making
yeah.
that transition too.
Mhm.
The especially because grades again is that problem. If you're not able to handle the stress of school, the family and friends can help you. And family and friends can also help you with the coach kind of relationship and what you need to do there. I
Mhm.
know as a 16-year-old boy, I was going wild through puberty, and my parents helped me with some coach issues and things. And so I think that really helps because, if you're high testosterone during that period, your mind is kind of in a different place. So I think
Mhm.
those are a lot of factors. And getting back to what we just talked about, all these athletes kind of dropping out before or right as they get to high school gets back to why, as a youth coach, do you want to run the high school system if a lot of players are not aligning or are not going to be there?
Mhm.
If 50% of the players on your team are not going to play high school ball, should you make this juggling match to make that work? I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, right? I mean,
Yeah. No, don't stress yourself out over that, youth coaches. And two, like you said, they could change positions. They could be a skill guy at the youth level, and then they become a lineman at the high school level, or the reverse.
or the reverse, or
So
like one of our good players was a fullback, and we were hoping he'd continue to play high school football. He was so good. We called him the banger. He loved baseball. So he just said, "I'm playing
Mhm,
baseball in high school." So you get
mhm.
that too. They're just not going to focus on football because the football and baseball coaches don't like them playing to get the same thing unless they're like a high end pitcher. Then they'll kind of let that happen, right?
That is a whole other podcast about
Yes,
the
that's
coaches'
a future pod.
relationships
Yes.
at the high school level specifically, and if the coaches get along, they share athletes great, and if they don't, I've seen that become really petty, and
Also
that's not something
banned.
you want, but I've seen it happen.
Also banned. My good friend and college roommate,
Okay.
the band leader told him he couldn't play football if he wanted to sit number one trumpet in band. So he quit band.
Oh, jeez. I
he had to make a choice. I mean, it's so
mm,
crazy, and this was in the '80s. I can't
mhm,
imagine what it's probably like now. So, yeah, so you're getting there's a lot of reasons why these players are dropping before in early high school or before, and that like that report says, there's just so many factors of this occurring. And it said, though, but what I thought the report said, and I think what we're talking about with the coaches, is that it said that the younger athletes should play multiple sports, and that was a
mhm,
positive,
mhm.
which nobody wants to really talk about that great deal, right?
It's it's I think this goes along with that point. I think travel league
Yeah, it's
is
corrupted the whole system.
oh my gosh. It has made a lot of false promises to people for the sake of making money. And you'll see kids saying, I need to go play travel, whatever. And you look at the kid and you think, buddy, you're not playing college in that sport. There's no way. You're 5'6". and, and your parents are shelling out a bunch of money to this coach, and he's just lying to you. And you'd be better off playing, like you said, multiple sports to develop yourself and to have more fun, to play for your school teams and enjoy the experience rather than traveling every weekend to go play at a tournament.
Now, I do know, and maybe you can talk to this since you're the high school guy, is like, I know here the soccer teams are really into, if you didn't come up in a select travel soccer team, you're probably not going to make it to the high school team.
Mm,
It's almost a deal.
mhm.
And are you seeing, I mean, have you seen that in baseball and soccer? I mean, that seems just wow. There's got to be some kids that are developing right as you speak, and you're
Right,
not going to
right.
coach them.
I mean, my two oldest daughters play volleyball and field hockey, and they play rec league. They're not going to play travel league, but they practice at our house or at the park a lot.
Right.
And I think travel teams play a bunch of games. There's not a lot of practicing there. And I think
Yeah,
as
you're
long
right.
as they're getting the practice of their skills at either clinics or on their own, that's what you're looking for is are their skills developing so then they can be a successful high school, college player in whatever sport they're playing.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, that is crazy that the practice time goes down and they're just playing games all the time.
All about the money, coach. That's what it
And
is.
practice
It's
is
about money.
really where you learn those techniques and perfect
Mhm.
to take to the game, because champions are made in practice in the off season, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I was talking to somebody yesterday. Football is really the last sport you can play just during the season, and it doesn't really cost you anything. I mean, you have to
Right.
pay for things in youth league, but once you get to high school, I mean, you're not playing on a travel football team in the off season. Like, you can play
No,
7-on-7,
no.
but you're not playing football.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because there's still travel baseball, and yeah, that you're
Oh,
still on
yeah.
kind of those teams. I've heard some of the baseball guys don't even play high school ball anymore. That in basketball
It's
too.
yeah, and where I'm with the high school in Florida, there were a lot of guys that played 2 sports, 3 sports, and that's just not the case anymore. They're playing baseball or football or basketball, and I think if more people read the study that we were we've been talking about, more people would play multiple sports because it helps them become a better athlete overall.
Yeah, I totally believe in that. I know my 40 time was like a 5.2, I think in eighth grade. My dad and I started playing racquetball, and I got to be pretty good. But my 40 time went to a 4.7 within 2 years. And if I
Mhm,
wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have probably got that 40 time, because racquetball, if you're not playing racquetball, pickleball, or basketball, where it's quick feet, hands,
mhm,
you should as a youth player, because that's where you get all that quick feet, hand-eye coordination. So that
mhm.
multiple sport really helps out. And everybody used to know that, but they've kind of, because like all the NFL facilities used to have racquetball courts and things, and did all these multi-sport stuff. And
Okay.
because our racquetball, I worked at a racquetball club in Houston with a coach that hired my junior high coach was the manager and hired us over there, a couple of guys, and we had Oilers and Bengals and all these football players come in and play in the '80s, and so yeah, I think we've lost that multi-sport thing, and I think we need to get back to it. And what I don't understand about baseball, since your dad played professional baseball, is there all these shoulder? Is it the Tommy John shoulder kind of thing? And
That's the elbow, yeah. The Tommy
or
John
what? Yeah,
surgery.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we've made these kids throw more games.
It's all overuse. That's what it is. It's
Yeah,
overuse.
it's like I mean we're oh well, yeah, we could continue to go down that road, but yeah, so we've beaten that one up. So what we found
Mhm.
from that study, and I'll post all this, the notes and everything eventually, so you can read all these studies, that there's not a correlation between your youth child becoming an elite athlete. There's a lot of
Mhm.
hurdles that have to be jumped to get to that point. And that's probably that 2%, right? That's the 2% that get there, that are going to be
Mhm.
elite level, that are going to go pro. Because
Mhm.
what's is a goofy stat that it's such a small percentage to make it to the NFL from youth, right? I mean, I
Oh,
think it's less than 1% that you actually make it.
yeah. It's infinitesimally small. I mean, it's just so small and
And I
yeah.
believe that, and because I've sponsored the pro racquetball tour, been around a racquetball guys, been around a baseball players too, and things like you have, and football guys. I think 99% of those, or 95% are touched by God, said, you have a specific skill that I've given you.
Mhm.
There's other people that are hard work it. That may
Mhm.
be 10%, but I think 90% of those guys, you've seen those. I mean, somebody touched this and said, you've got it. This is you, right? Do you believe that too?
I do. Genetics really matter,
It really
and
does. I mean, yeah,
I
you
the oh, go ahead.
I was just agreeing. Yes, the genetics matter. That's a big deal.
The best high school linebacker I ever coached was 5'9.5", could power clean 400 pounds, and all these Division I schools were coming to recruit the school I was at. We had a defensive end who ended up signing at Auburn the year after they went to the national championship game, really good player. And they would watch his film and go, "Oh my gosh!" And we'd call him down to the office, and he'd walk in, and all of them they would all be polite and shake his hand and stuff. But he got zero offers because he was 5'9.5" or 5'10", whatever shoes on. And that is to me, that was the best lesson of, oh, he doesn't fit the height requirement of that position at the
Yeah.
Division I level, and he won't get offered. And that's just a fact that I think if more kids understood that, they'd be more ready to go play Division II, Division III, NAIA, because some of them are hung up on, I want to be Division I. Well, son, you're 5'9.5". You're not
I
going to
think
play
that
Division I football.
I think that's a totally great another podcast is D1, D2, D3, and
Mhm.
what that mean, as an athlete, your reality check on probably where you're going to go and what that means for you. Somebody, I saw that the other day, but we'll future this one off into something for the next time, because that's a long one too, I think, on
Oh, it
where you
is.
think you are there. But I thought, kind of wrapping up here, ChatGPT did a really nice for and against, just
Oh, I
kind of
love that. That was so
just
good.
kind of bring this one home. And forgive me if I read some of this off more than I talk, but
No, do it. Go ahead.
yeah, it was like, okay, so for why this would be is really, you know, you're kind of coaching and training the high school coaches system, which is sort of going to help. It gives them a head start, maybe. But the real big thing was terminology, formation, motions, and how that's all going to look. Um, it's going to, supposedly, it says it's going to give you better coaching structure because the systems are already put together and they're going to help you. Hopefully, if you're in that, that's what they're doing. It says it's going to allow more passing and spacing. And I think that becomes, if you're the team that has the quarterback and receivers and the blocking to do that, that will be something there. I find it funny that it said you're going to spread the field with the high school system. So that could be the case there. Um,
Mhm.
and it says, it helps with player consistency to bring those players up through the system. And I think that's all for stuff. And I think that gets back to what we said about that vertical alignment with all of those things. It can be great.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's good. But what the against was, which I thought this percentage was huge. And guys, I'll post this stuff so you can look at it. Against says 90% of youth coaches say just because the
Mhm.
high schools run it doesn't mean your 10-year-old can. So
That's a fact.
yeah, yeah, that really is a fact. I mean, we've seen high school coaches come in and try to do it, and it doesn't really work. It may start working at 12U,
Mhm.
11U kind of stuff, and you can kind of do some of that. But yeah, it's not at these lower levels. And basically, because the kids are not mentally and physically ready to do that yet.
Mhm.
They're just not there. And this was great. So, high school systems assume, and you please stop me if this is wrong, quarterback should be able to throw 20 and 30 yards consistently. Youth is like 12 yards, maybe, if
Mhm.
you get the kid
Mhm.
that can do it. Now, look, guys, there's the 10% or 20% guys that get that kid. Great. But then you got to have the receiver that can catch it and run the routes properly. You've got to have, I think most importantly, is pass blocking is very hard to teach at the youth level. It is
Amen.
their feet and hips are not ready to move laterally. So you're just, that's a bigger problem. Uh, High school, there's kind of these 50 plays, but maybe 10 and four formations. So it looks like 50. So that
Mhm.
kind of challenges a lot. And so most 8 year olds, 8 to 12-year olds are not really going to do that because they don't even have the fundamentals down yet, which is really where you need to be. Uh, the other thing that I think is great is we only have 2 practices a week. High school, you've got to get a lot of reps,
Mhm.
for these systems. And so if you're only getting 2 or 3 days a week and not 5, that's hindering your reps. If you can't get through the 24 or 36 plays, that's hindering the reps.
Mhm.
Uh, so more plays, more confusion, more mistakes are leading there. And basically, it says, I know this is getting long, but it basically says the offensive line in youth is really a disaster most of the time. And I would say that's where you really, as a youth coach, have to
Yes.
spend the majority of your time on the offensive line, right? You
Uh,
see this.
yes, and if you're
Absolutely.
asking them to drop back pass pro a lot, you're in trouble because
Trouble.
that's a
Yeah.
hard skill to
Yeah.
learn at that age.
So even ChatGPT says this, and look, I didn't tell it just to read my pages. That's going out on the whole interwebs. The best youth offenses are power based, which I think you and I totally agree to that.
Mhm.
Um, so they're talking double wing, single wing, odd, beast, power T, all of these. You get double teams, misdirections, they hit fast, kind of hides the ball, and you're basically teaching fundamental pad level blocking that's simple. And kids can learn
Mhm.
that, and that can be transferred up to the high school level, all those fundamental skills. And it says basically high school spread offenses are depending on youth defenses playing a normal spread defense and not blitzing and crashing every play on your quarterback, which youth
Mhm.
defenses do. So you're better off doing a power, which I agree. Says if you look smart, you kind of take a little piece of the high school stuff, mix it in, and run your main systems. That's what I kind of do, and or at least I have a spread package so everybody can kind of learn that part. So when they get to high school, they have that. And that's one thing you can do as a youth coach is kind of teach a little bit of everything, but focus. I think even ChatGPT said you still need to focus on winning at the youth level because kids need to learn to win.
That's a fact. As I
That
can
was
hear
a
my
lot.
kids
Sorry,
playing
guys. I
basketball in
just
their room
read it.
next to me. It's beautiful, coach. It's beautiful. Man, thank you for all your wisdom in doing this. And I know that the listeners will love this.
Great. Hopefully, I didn't read it too bad there. Sorry about that, but
Not at all. That was
yeah.
good. You got such a good voice to read, coach. You really do.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Hey, remember to play for fun, and winning is funner. And if you guys have any questions on this, leave a comment below. Let us know. See you guys next time. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Ciao.